My alarm went off at 4:45 as usual, but I was already up. I always woke those days before my alarm. I wasn't sleeping well and hadn't for a few months. I looked out my bedroom window and sighed at the darkness. I couldn't remember the last time the sun was out when I woke. I started work at 6 every day, whether rain, shine, or otherwise, but I got off by 4, so that was nice. I never missed any of my girls' activities. I used the hall bathroom shower to limit the noise and not wake my wife. She didn't wake up until the last possible moment before she couldn't make it to work on time, which was 6. My 2 daughters woke at 5 and used the same bathroom I did. We had it down to the minute. After my shower, I passed my first daughter, Maria, in the hall and kissed her still half-asleep cheek as she groaned her way into the bathroom for her shower. I peeked into my other daughter, Tara's, bedroom to make sure she was up, and she acknowledged my good morning greeting with her own groan. 5 minutes later, I was dressed and ready to start breakfast for my family. It was the same as every other day. I made a pot of coffee, a pan of scrambled eggs, a plate of toast, and set out the girls' yogurts for them. They were old enough at 15 and 16 to do it themselves, but it was the last little bit of involvement I had in their lives. They had outgrown the daddy's girl days and I was merely an embarrassment to them at that point. After eating and checking to make sure Tara was awake, I kissed my wife, Erin, on the forehead and shrugged off her, pretending to be asleep. I pulled out of the garage lamenting how far I'd fallen from the graces of my family. The saddest part was, I didn't do anything to cause it. They simply became embarrassed and annoyed by my job. I was a garbage man. When I got the job a couple of years out of high school, I was ecstatic. It paid better than some of my friends were making after graduating college. I figured I'd do it until I found something else in one of the trades, but when I was told it was a union job and I'd get the same benefits as the trades anyway, I stuck with it. I knew not having a degree as my friends had meant that I would never be climbing any corporate ladders, and that was fine by me. After 25 years on the job, I had a pension, a more than decent wage, great benefits, and was coasting towards retirement in 5 years when I hit 50. At that point, I'd collect my full pension and could do whatever I wanted. When I met Erin, she was working her way through college as a waitress. We fell in love, got married, and life was roses and raspberries for the next 16 years. Then the unthinkable happened. My family began to resent me. I remember the day it happened. I was at Tara's softball game with Erin, and one of the new dads asked what I did for a living. When I told him I was his garbage man, his face screwed and then he laughed, thinking I was joking. My wife and daughter saw his reaction and that was the beginning of my fall. For the first time, they were embarrassed by me. It wasn't like I was coming home from work smelling like garbage. I drove the truck and rarely had to get out anymore. The mechanical arm on the basket lifted the cans in the residential neighborhoods I was servicing. I hadn't done the hard stuff in almost a decade. Sure, I had some crappy times over the years, but it wasn't all that bad for a long time. I even had a shower at the yard before I went home every day. My family never complained. They never hid what I did from our friends. It was just my job, no different than if I were a carpenter or policeman. From that day on, life was different. Shortly after the incident, my wife got a promotion to management at her office. She worked in a bank, and her promotion netted her a nice raise. She already made quite a few bucks more than me, and that raise made the spread even greater. It didn't bother me though, I was proud of her, but I guess it bothered her. She began to dress better and bought fancier jewelry. I didn't mind, she was still beautiful at 42 and I liked to see her dressed up. Her long legs looked great in the skirts she began to wear, and the high heels propped up her butt nicely. She also started buying my daughters more things. I think that's what may have turned the final screw after the incident. They no longer acted the same towards me, and were almost overdoing it, in their adoration of their mother. I hoped it was a phase, but that didn't look likely. My girls were once daddy's girls. I coached their sports teams when they were young. I played dolls with them and had tea parties. Hell, I even let them paint my fingernails and style my hair when we played salon together. I was that devoted to them and wasn't embarrassed by any of it. Even when Erin would post the pictures on social media. I figured it was just what daddies did for their baby girls. After work, I walked in the door of my quiet house at the usual time. My wife would be home an hour later, and my daughters could be home in an hour or three, depending on what they had going on after school that day. I went into the kitchen to get started on dinner and found a note on the table. "I'll be home late. Having dinner with my team." I sighed. I wished my wife would have told me that when I kissed her goodbye that morning. I would have gone out for a couple of beers with the guys after work. I walked over to the fridge and saw a note from Tara. "We're spending the night at Jenny's." "Another Friday night alone," I said to my cat, Fido. Yeah, I know it was a dumb name, but it made my little girls giggle when we got him. I would have done anything to hear my little girls giggle again. I thought about the last time Erin was home on a Friday and realized it had been months. There was always something, whether it was dinner with her team, drinks with the girls, managers blowing off steam at the bar, or any other excuse she gave me. I began to wonder if she was having an affair. She came home at 10 and didn't seem drunk. I was, however. I spent the evening sitting on my recliner drinking away my sorrows one Jack Daniels at a time. "Hello, dear," I slurred. "Glad you made it home." "Are you drunk, Bill?" she asked. "Probably. I didn't have much to do to keep me sober." "Did you eat anything?" I nodded and finished the whiskey in my glass in one slug. "You're unbelievable." I poured another glassful and raised it to her in a mock toast. "Just living up to expectations." She shook her head and said, "Sleep on the couch then." "I don't want you vomiting on me in the middle of the night." "Yes, dear." I woke the next morning and heard voices. I was shocked the sun was out. I must have passed out because the empty glass was still in my hand resting on my thigh, and I never made it to the couch. As I regained consciousness, the voices became clearer. "Even if you're cheating on him, he's still our dad," Tara whined. They obviously thought I was too passed out to hear them in the kitchen. "I'm not cheating on him. I haven't done anything sexually with Jason yet." "Yet," Maria moaned. "Look, girls. You need to face the facts. We've outgrown your father. We need more than a garbage man. We need a real man that can give us a comfortable life and get us out of this little matchbox of a house. Jason can do that." "It feels wrong," Maria argued. "Sure, Dad embarrasses us, but he's not a bad dad. He was a pretty good husband to you too," Tara helped, and for a moment I was proud of her for standing up for me. "You have no room to talk," Erin fought. "You didn't even tell him you're playing on the tennis team this year. He'll be angry when he finds out you're too ashamed of him to have him at your games." Tara snickered. "Come on, Maria. You said it yourself that you hoped he never found out about us playing tennis or that you're dating Mike. See? You need to get off my back and let me complete my plan. Jason is interested in me, and when I snag him, we'll be more well off than we could ever be with your garbage man dad. You want to go to good colleges and have big weddings someday, don't you?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My girls were hiding their lives from me, and my wife was working on leaving me. I closed my eyes, hoping I could pretend to be asleep until they left. I didn't dare try to confront them. I didn't think I could take any more hurt hurled at me. "Get ready, we'll leave in 10 minutes, Erin ordered. It was the longest 10 minutes of my life. When the garage door closed, I walked to the window and watched them drive away. It was the saddest moment of my life. My baby girls were embarrassed of me. I wasn't thrilled about my wife trying to trade up, but my daughters drove a stake into my heart. I took a shower and decided to go out for something to eat. I was pretty well hungover, but I knew I had to eat something, or I'd never feel better. I thought about packing a bag and leaving, but I didn't want to spend the money on a motel room. I could sleep on the couch and probably be just as comfortable. I walked into the family restaurant in town and sat at the bar. I ate there once a week and knew all of the waitresses and the owner by name, so I was surprised to see a beautiful redhead working the bar. "What can I get ya?" she sang. I turned my cup over and said, "Black coffee, please," and my usual is the biscuits and gravy with over easy eggs on top, and a side of bacon. "Sounds yummy. I'll remember you going forward." It's my first week. I'm Bill. Melody, she responded with a wink and walked off. I followed her with my eyes and enjoyed the view of her, but in her black leggings. They didn't wear the old-style waitress skirts there. She continued to give me an eyeful all through my meal, and I enjoyed the little bit of flirty attention she paid me. Of course, I knew that she was just angling for a larger tip, so I took it with a grain of salt. I was still a married man and tried not to flirt back. After breakfast, I stood in line to pay my check and saw a little girl coloring behind the register. She was seated in the little booth the owner used, and he was making her giggle as she slapped his hand when he pretended to try to steal her crayons. "Got yourself another kid, Al?" I teased. He laughed and said, "She's the new girl, Melody's kid. Her babysitter is sick today." "Looks like you're doing just fine," I smirked. "You know me, Bill. I put 2 through college and 2 through the window." We laughed at his old movie quote, and I paid for my breakfast. I left the restaurant feeling better than when I went in and couldn't believe a little flirting from Melody picked up my spirits that much. I decided to go home and cut the grass. A little yard work would keep my mind off my family problems and Melody's, but I was halfway done mowing the backyard when I saw my wife calling to me. I ignored her, pretending I didn't hear or see her. The sunglasses and loud noise from the mower helped. She finally gave up after a few minutes. I wasn't prepared to deal with her. I still had no idea what I was going to do. I was leaning towards pulling a runner and taking all our money, but we didn't have enough money for me to live on until I retired. I'd just have to figure out how to inflict the most damage to her in the divorce. If she wanted out, she could get out. I hoped I could get the house and let her move in with her lover boy. I figured she'd take the girls with her the way it sounded. When I finished, I sprayed the grass off my lawn mower with the garden hose and pulled the bags of grass clippings beside the garage. I took as much time as possible, trimming and edging, and when I was done, I liked the way everything looked. I decided against using the trimmer on Aaron's flowers. I figured I'd just have to replant them down the road. Tara bounced out of the house and asked, "Daddy, can you drive us to the movies? We're gonna see Barbie with some friends." I wondered if one of the friends was that boyfriend Maria was hiding from me. "No," I barked. "I'm busy." "Daddy," she moaned. "Mom's going to some play and can't drive us." My head snapped over. Who's she going to the play with? Tara looked scared and stuttered, I don't know. "You'll have to ask her." I went back to sharpening my mower blade and said, "Whatever." "Dad, what about the movie?" she begged. "Ride your bikes or get a ride from someone else." "I'm busy." She stood there for a few moments as I continued to ignore her presence. I'm sure her face wore a shocked expression. I didn't always say yes to her, but I'd never said no to her like that. Things were going to change from that moment forward, and she'd need to get used to it. Every man for themselves, I figured. I heard the garage's side door slam and shook my head. The big door was open, and she could have just walked back out, but she couldn't slam that one. 20 minutes later, my wife walked into the garage wearing a little black dress. I was in the middle of changing her car's oil, and she was pissed. "What the hell are you doing to my car?" "I have to go to the play," she shouted. "What play? You never told me about a play." "I just started changing your oil." "God damn it. I was trying to get your attention when you were cutting the grass. My coworker Cheryl has tickets to Wicked and her husband is sick. I'm going with her." "Oh, well, I should be done in about an hour," I lied. "An hour? The guys at Jiffy Lube do it in 20 minutes. "Sure, but this ain't Jiffy Lube, is it? It takes me a bit longer." She looked at the engine with the funnel sticking out and the air filter sitting on the side and huffed back into the house. There was no way she'd take my truck. It wasn't in bad shape or anything. She would just never set foot in it. Only in her fancy Mercedes. I wondered if she was going to the play with her boyfriend. It would be interesting to see who picked her up. I sighed 10 minutes later when a Uber showed up to get her. I was standing in the driveway a few minutes later when a car full of kids showed up and my girls got in. they didn't say goodbye either. I spent my evening researching divorce laws. I learned that I wouldn't be too screwed. The one thing that got my attention was, since Erin made more than twice my income, I'd pay a reduced child support amount and she'd have to pay me alimony. The best part is that while child support would end in a couple of years, she'd have to keep paying alimony. The state had a calculator on the net that I used, and it even told me how long she'd have to pay. The next morning, I was up at my usual time and showered. I had nothing planned for the day, but I decided to get breakfast at the diner and go to the Sox game. That made me sad, because if not for the betrayal of my family, we'd have gone together. The girls loved the Sox and used to love going to their games. I walked into the restaurant and sat at the bar. I smiled when Melody's smiling face came out of the kitchen with a pot of coffee. "Hey there, Billy. What's new today?" she asked. "Divorce," I deadpanned as she poured my coffee. "Are you serious?" I nodded. "Sorry to hear that, Bill. Divorce sucks, believe me." I shrugged my shoulders and took a sip of the scalding beverage. "Do you mind if I asked what happened?" "My wife and daughters decided I wasn't what they wanted anymore. I'm a garbage man and I embarrassed them, by their own words. It turns out my wife is shopping for my replacement without telling me." "I'm sorry, Bill. Excuse me while I refill the cups." I watched her walk away and was pleased to see her perfect posterior was on display again. "I'm Lucy," came a voice from the little girl I saw the day before. She smiled as she climbed onto the barstool-style chair next to me. "Mama says I can't talk to strangers, so you have to tell me your name. That way you're not a stranger anymore." I laughed and said, "Knowing my name doesn't make me any less a stranger, princess, but I'm not gonna hurt ya. I'm Bill." She grabbed her glass of water with 2 hands and put the straw to her lips. The glass looked huge in her little hands, and she reminded me of my daughters. "I wanted to have chocolate milk, but Mama says it's not good for me." "Mama's right." Melody walked up with my breakfast and said, "Lucy, please don't bother the customers. I don't want to get in trouble." "Oh, she's no trouble," I smiled. "It's good to have some cheerful company." "Want a piece of bacon, Lucy?" I asked. She smiled and nodded enthusiastically. I slid the side plate over to her and she snatched a piece as if it were the last piece of bacon on the planet. I chuckled as she shoved the whole thing in her mouth. "Easy, girl. It's not gonna run away on you." She giggled and bounced off the stool to explore somewhere else. "What's the matter, Bill?" Melody asked as I watched her daughter be energetic. "Just thinking of my girls. I don't understand how they can do this to me." I explained that my girls were ashamed to have me at their games. Maria didn't want me to meet her boyfriend. My wife was grooming my replacement. I was fucked. She touched my shoulder. "Are you okay?" "I will be. I'm just second-guessing getting the divorce. Maybe she'll come around and not leave me? Sounds to me like she ain't worth having back." I was surprised by the snarl in her voice. "Probably not, but I don't have any better options. There's no line of women beating down my door." She laughed. "Bill, you won't be dating for a long while. You can't just jump from one woman to another. It doesn't work out that way in real life." I knew she was right. It was silly of me to worry about finding Erin's replacement immediately after kicking her to the curb. She turned my face to make me face her. "Look, you seem like a good guy. Hell, my daughter talked to you. It took her 3 days to talk to my boss. She must see your positives." I laughed. "You probably don't see it because you're so devoted to that bitch, but there are women out there right now checking you out. You're a handsome guy and in decent shape. If you dressed a little less like an old farmer, you'd be a hell of a catch." "Old farmer?" I whined. She laughed again. I was beginning to love that sound. "Yep. John Deere hat. White t-shirt with pocket. Old jeans. Hell, you even have a red handkerchief sticking out of your back pocket." I raised my eyebrows at that. "What?" she chirped. You think you're the only one who checks out people's butts? Come on, eat up. She walked away and tended to her tables. At least she didn't pick on my grass-stained, stereotypical, meme-worthy, dad gym shoes. You know the ones. New Balance specials. After a few minutes, my coffee was refilled. It didn't take 2 bites of my breakfast for Lucy to sidle back onto the stool beside me. Mama said I have to leave you alone. You don't want me to leave you alone, do ya? I laughed and gave her another piece of bacon. No, princess. You can talk to me. How come you're eating by yourself? Don't you have little kids? She asked. I forced a smile and said, I used to, but they're older now. Going to eat with their dad would just be boring for them. Don't you give them bacon? I laughed and said, I sure did. They just grew up on me. They eat yogurt now instead. She screwed up her nose, EW. Yuck. I ate the last of my biscuits and scooped up the rest of the gravy with a spoon. I sighed and said, well, princess, I'll see you around. Leaving so soon? Melody asked from behind us. Yeah. I'm going to the ball game and want to hit Home Depot first. Sounds fun. I've never been to a game, she said. Oh, yeah. Today's Kids' Day. When my girls were little, we'd go every time. They used to get so excited running the bases, it was hard to get them off the field. Cool, she said. Have a. I coo. LD ain't believe the words left my mouth, but I blurted, wanna come with? I was shocked. I didn't even think about it before asking. No, we couldn't do that. It's. Mama, please? I wanna run on the field. Do you know how to run the bases? I asked. She nodded, huh. I played t-ball last year. I was on the Bears. I looked at Melody and smiled, well, Mom? What do you think? The game's at 1. We have plenty of time. She bit her lip and seemed to be stifling a smile, but said, okay. I'll be done here at 11 when the lunch girl comes in. You're sure it's no problem? Positive. Lucy started clapping. I'll be back to pick you up at 11 then. I paid my check and said goodbye to Al. I couldn't get the smile off my face if I had a chisel, but what the hell was I doing? I walked into the garage and set my bags from the hardware store on my workbench. Aaron's car was gone, but I didn't care. I put on my old Paul Konerko jersey and found my well-worn Good Luck Sox hat. I wore the same outfit to every game I went to with the girls. Are we going to the game, Daddy? Maria asked. No, I'm going to the game. What do you mean? You're going without us, she whined. Yep. I put on my hat and left her standing in the hallway wondering what was going on. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw Erin pulling up to the house. She honked and waved as I drove by, ignoring her. A few moments later, my phone rang. Yes, I answered on speakerphone. What is going on with you lately? Erin grumbled. I don't know what you're talking about. Why aren't you taking us to the game with you? I laughed. I guess I figured that I should get used to doing things without you and the girls. There was a long moment of silence. I ended the call. I ignored her the next time she called and the 5 times after that. I read the texts, they were just call me or you're being an ass type texts. It was funny, I was being an ass, but she was the one leaving me. I was emotionally detached from her and knew we were finished. I couldn't stay with someone like her. I'd always wonder whether she was still looking to trade up. I walked into the restaurant at 11 and found Lucy sitting at the bar with the end of a basket of fries covered in ketchup. Looks like someone likes ketchup, I said as I sat beside her. She smiled and nodded with lips covered in the red goodness. Hi, Bill, Melody called out from the bathroom area and walked over. We can go. I just wanted her to have a little something, so she didn't want too much at the park. I know how expensive things can be. Yeah, ballpark prices going up, death, and taxes are the only guarantees in life. She's young enough to get in free and our tickets will only be $10, so it's not too bad on family day. Family day? She asked. I thought you said Kids Day. Yeah, they changed the name. When my girls were little, it was always Kids Day. I know what you're thinking, I'm not trying to. She cut me off. Don't worry about it. I know it's not a date. You're still married and trying to find some piece of happiness. I don't mind us being the beneficiaries of that. She wiped Lucy's mouth and smiled at me. Let's get a move on, shall we? During the drive to the stadium, I got some of her life story. She was married to a drunk who couldn't keep a job, had enough of his lying to her, so she left him. He didn't get to see Lucy much because he was behind on his child support. I felt bad for the little girl and couldn't imagine not seeing my daughters. All children need their daddies. She moved to the area to live with her parents while she got back on her feet. Waiting tables was the first job she found, but she was an administrative assistant before she had Lucy. She was looking for jobs closer to that specialty but wasn't having any luck. She was younger than I was at 31, but she had a maturity that motherhood, divorce, and hard times would instill in anyone. The game was uneventful. Little Lucy somehow put down 2 hot dogs and a Coke. It was her first pop ever, and by the look on her face when she tasted it, it wouldn't be her last. In the 7th inning, we lined up so Lucy could run the bases. It was a long line, but she would get her chance. The team's mascot went up and down the line, keeping the kids engaged, and all the parents were thankful for that. I was surprised to see Jack Dorsey, the Little League director from our hometown, there with his kids. We let them cut in line with us and I did the introductions. Jack, this is my friend Melody and her daughter Lucy. Don't get any ideas, I'm not cheating on Aaron, we're just watching a ball game together. With my girls grown up, I don't have a chance to get to many games nowadays. Jack laughed. I understand. I'm just glad I've got a young one yet. This will be Junior's last year of this. He turns 14 over the winter. I may have to borrow a kid then too. We laughed together. Listen, Bill. If you need something to do and want to stay involved with kids, we need a t-ball coach this season. Art Daly retired and moved to Florida. Oh, no! Melody shrieked. That was Lucy's coach. Oh, yeah? Well, you'll already know one of the kids on the team, Bill. Think about it and let me know. Registration starts in February, so you'll have until then if I don't find anyone. I smiled and said, you know what? I'll do it. What the hell? The idea of coaching the kids cheered me up and I was in desperate need of that. Great. Jack answered. You know how it all works from coaching before. It's not any different now. I'll send you the packet and we'll get you on the way. Before we knew it, the game was over, and it was time for the kids to run the bases. I could feel the excitement emanating from Lucy's body. Melody was having a great time feeding off her daughter's joy and the fun of being at a baseball game. Our team wasn't in contention and lost, but we had some good young players and I enjoyed that piece. By the time we exited the parking lot, Lucy was asleep. Melody was quiet for most of the ride home and dozed off for a bit herself. I left my truck at the restaurant and didn't know where they lived anyway, so I went to the restaurant to switch to my truck. When I put Melody's car in park, she woke up although pretended she wasn't asleep. Thanks again, Bill. We had fun. Thanks for tagging along. I enjoyed it too. Heck, I got a coaching gig out of it and I'm pretty excited about that. I hope you don't get into trouble for this, she added. Maybe it wasn't the best idea to take a single mom out to a game? I laughed. Honestly, I don't care. I was going anyway and your coming with just made it more fun. She smiled. Okay, Bill. Thanks again. I helped load the sleeping Lucy into her car seat and watched them drive away with a wave. I sighed and headed home. I had no idea what to expect, but my crumbling marriage had to end at some point. If I had to have it out with her and the girls that night, it wasn't going to be a different result than later. Putting it off would only make it worse anyway. I walked into the house and was immediately hit by a barrage of shouting. I couldn't tell who was saying what, as it all blended together in a mishmash of shouts, shrieks, and squeals. I let them yell as I grabbed a beer and sat at the kitchen table. One by one, they ran out of steam and finally I got to speak. I will answer all of your questions if you answer one for me first. They all agreed. Why should I care? Aaron shouted, What do you mean why should you care? You're my goddamned husband and the girl's father. That's why you should care. I shook my head. Nope, wrong answer. I'll wait until you get it right. Aaron shouted, I don't know what the hell is wrong with you, but I demand a goddamned answer. Why are you acting like this? You know damned well why I'm acting like this, I said with more calmness than I felt. You all know why, but you continue to play this game. This charade ends tonight. I'm over it, I'm over you, and although I'll always love you girls, I will get over you too, eventually. Tara started crying, See, mother. This is what you've done. You've messed everything up. She ran from the room, and I assumed headed to her bedroom. Maria stood in shock and Aaron looked as if someone pissed in her Cheerios. I stood and chugged the last of my beer. Maria asked, Dad, are you leaving us? I laughed. No, Maria. She blanched at the coldness of my using her name instead of pumpkin, princess, or any of the other terms of endearment I used. No, I'm not leaving. You girls and your mother are leaving me. If she wants to trade up, she can't do it living in this little matchbox. Erin paled at me, throwing her words back at them. She regained composure quickly and returned to the attack. We're not going anywhere, Bill. I'm not trading up and we are not leaving. I spat, What? Jason isn't ready yet? Maria spun and walked out of the room. I hoped Aaron was ready to deal with that fallout. I was surprised that the girls weren't so quick to go along with the plan when the reality of it came home to roost. I had a glimmer of hope that they would come back to me and forget their mother's need for more stuff. Aaron glared at me. Are you still here? You thought I didn't know about Jason and your plan to trade up, huh? Get the hell out of here. The sight of your whore ass makes me sick. I was shocked when she didn't say a word. She merely turned and walked from the room. I heard her grab her keys and close the front door. I walked out to the garage and saw her backing out. I ignored her and grabbed my bags from Home Depot. It took about an hour and a half to change all the locks, and the longest part of that was trying to remember how to change the garage code. It was getting to be dinner time, so I walked upstairs to see if the girls were hungry. I found them huddled in Tara's bedroom. Dad. DY. Tara squealed and about tackled me with a hug. Maria quickly joined in. Daddy, we're sorry. We love you, don't make us go away. They were crying in my arms, and I melted as I always did for them. Whoa, girls. This is your choice. You're the ones who are ashamed of me and want someone else. No, Daddy. Maria shrieked. We don't want anyone else. Maybe not, but you're ashamed of me. You're hiding boyfriends, hiding being on the tennis team. You don't want your friends to know me. The same friends I coached all through softball. The same friends I drove to the mall. The same friends I showed how to protect themselves against boys that won't take no for an answer. You're ashamed of me now. They continued to cry, but I turned to leave. I couldn't take any more pain from them. Suddenly, Maria grabbed me. Daddy, no. Don't go. What do you want me to do, Maria? What do you want me to say? You're crushing my heart and you want to flip-flop around playing games with me. Grow up. I pushed her off me and hurried into my room. Thankfully, I had a strong lock on my door, and it wasn't one of those doors that are more for show than function. They weren't getting into my room. I sat on the bed and fought back tears. How could I forget all of what they did and act like it never happened? How could I forget they didn't tell me what their mother was planning? How could I let myself hurt them as much as they were hurting me? I opened my door and they burst into my room. We hugged and they cried some more. They were my girls. My everything. I had to find a way to forgive them, but it wouldn't be overnight. It turned out Jason was already on board with Erin trading up for him. What he wasn't on board with was taking on 2 teenaged girls with her, as his house was a bachelor pad without room for 2 additional girls. The divorce was surprisingly smooth. We agreed on joint custody, and with the girls wanting to stay with me in the home they grew up in and Erin abandoning them to live with Jason, I got their staying with me without a challenge. The alimony and child support Erin had to pay me ate away her big raise from the promotion, but she didn't care. It was a preset calculation, and I didn't fight for more. I had my girls. They were all I wanted. I'd like to say the girls spat in their mother's face, called her a whore, and told her they never wanted to see her again, but it didn't work out that way. Erin still bought them whatever they wanted, including a car for the girls to share. I didn't have any real contact with her after the final court date, so I had no idea what her thoughts were. The checks cleared every month for alimony and child support, and that was all I wanted out of her. It took a couple of months for me and the girls to work through our issues. The girls claimed they weren't embarrassed by me, that it was their mother's influence that made them ashamed of me. I didn't fully believe that, but when I was introduced to their boyfriends and given sports schedules again, I let it go. Things were getting back to normal, but I kept a close eye on how they treated me. One of the reasons the girls were shocked at the depth of their mother's betrayal was the savings account I had set up for them. They said Erin made it seem as if they had to go to a cheap college and pay for it with student loans. I showed them it wasn't true. I had an account with a brokerage firm that I put money into every month since they were born. It would be enough to send them to school and whatever else it didn't cover, their mother and I could afford. Erin didn't go after it in the divorce. The day after I got the final divorce decree in the mail, I went to see Melody at the restaurant for breakfast. We'd see each other once a week when I had breakfast there, but we never went out again. I wanted to rectify that. "Hey, stranger," she said as I sat down at the counter. "Hey, yourself. What brings you in on a weekday?" she asked. "My divorce is over and I'm a free man now." She raised her eyebrows and poured my coffee. "I was hoping now that I'm not married, you'd let me take you out." She smiled. "Like a date?" "No. Not like a date. A real date, goof." Her smile widened. "I don't know. I don't like the idea of being a rebound girl. Maybe I should make you play the field for a while first?" I shrugged. "Okay. Forget it. I'm sure someone else will." "Shut it, dummy. You can take me out on Friday night. I'm not gonna let anyone else get a crack at you." I looked at her expectantly and she asked, "What? Do I have something on my face?" "No, but I need your phone number and address so I can pick you up." I smiled as she shook her head. "I have your number. It's in the packet for T-ball. I'll text you my address." "You've had my number all this time and never used it?" I asked, teasing. "I've had it all of 3 days since registration was just last week," she groaned. "Now leave me alone so I can get your breakfast." She winked and walked away. Perhaps with a bit more wiggle than she usually had. My daughters were initially not a fan of my dating a single mother with a little girl. If jealousy were tangible, the greenness would have left a trail behind their bodies. The Saturday after my first official date with Melody, I invited her and Lucy over for lunch. I told my girls they were coming over and I was cooking on the grill, so they'd better be home. My girls loved my homemade barbecue rub and sauce. "Daddy," Tara whined, "we were double dating for lunch and a movie on Saturday." I said, "That's no problem. You can still go to the movies, and then dinner. Just have lunch with me and meet Melody and Lucy. Once we eat and spend some time together, you can go out." Tara stomped off and Maria kissed my cheek. "We'll be here, Dad. If for no other reason than to make sure you haven't replaced us with that little girl." She turned and walked away as if she had just delivered a counter-offensive to some charge they thought I was mounting against them. Their attitudes bothered me, and I tried to push back those feelings. I got up early and made my rub for the ribs and chicken legs I was making. While the ribs were going low and slow, I'd make my barbecue sauce. I wasn't exactly a pitmaster, but now that I was single, I decided I'd buy the smoker Aaron always denied me. As I looked around my backyard and patio, I decided I was going to do a lot of things Aaron rejected. I was making potato salad when the doorbell rang. I tried to get to it before my daughters could, but that was a losing battle. Melody hadn't made it into the house yet before my girls started grilling her with sneers. "Where do you live? Where do you work? How old are you? Are you divorced?" Melody couldn't get a word in edgewise. "Whoa, girls. Maria and Tara, step away from Melody and Lucy, please," I interjected. "Please forgive them, Melody." I looked at my daughters. I'm not sure what they think they are doing. "It's okay, Bill," she answered sweetly. "They're just looking out for your best interests. No matter how rudely." The smile she gave them could have cut glass. "Anyway," I said. "This is Tara, and this is Maria. Girls, this is Melody and her daughter Lucy." Lucy was hiding behind her mother. So much for the sassy little extrovert, I thought. I reached out for Lucy to take my hand and she shyly took it and allowed me to guide her out from behind the protection of her mother. She looked up at my daughters, who were scowling at her, and retreated into my leg. I looked at my daughters and they read the expression on my face. It was not one of pleasure. "Melody," I said, "how about you take Lucy into the kitchen? I was just finishing mixing the potato salad, maybe she'd like to help stir it?" My daughters frowned. When my girls were little, they would stir things for me. They hadn't done it in a few years, but the memories were coming back and driving home what the result of their actions could mean. I would not stand for them ruining things with Melody, and they feared if they did, I would have other daughter options available. "Wait," Tara interrupted. "I'm sorry if we were being a little rude. I guess we're not taking the divorce well and Dad moving on so easily." I snorted. "You sure didn't mind it when you knew your mother was trying to trade up and didn't tell me." Tara shook her head, then turned and ran to the stairs leading to her room. Maria said, "Jesus, Dad. We've apologized for that over and over again." "Well, I find it pretty shitty that you were cool with your mother's asshole while she was trying to trade up, but after she divorces me, when I bring home a woman I'm interested in, you guys treat her like crap. You can't handle my moving on, but you could handle your mother trading up? Do you know what? This was a mistake. Call your boyfriends and have them pick you up. I don't want you spoiling our lunch." Melody gasped and Maria ran off to her room. I shook my head and sat in the recliner a foot away. I couldn't believe I drove a knife into the heart of my relationship with my girls. "Maybe we should leave, Bill." I looked up and Melody was frowning at me. Lucy crawled on my lap and hugged me. "But we didn't eat ribs yet, Mama." I smiled at Lucy's innocence. "She's right, Melody. We haven't eaten yet, and no matter what happened with my daughters, we can still enjoy our lunch. Let's go finish that potato salad." A wave of sadness crept over me. I didn't know why my daughters acted the way they did, but above all, I didn't know why I did. I figured the anger and frustration over their not telling me about their mother's boyfriend hadn't completely gone away and it finally snowballed out of control. I assumed my daughters left, as I didn't hear a peep out of them for the rest of the afternoon. Lucy seemed to eat their share of the ribs for them. She was like a black hole, I didn't know where she put all the food she ate. She was especially happy with the extra cup of barbecue sauce I gave her. I liked mine with a kick and made a small amount of it without the heat for little Lucy. She showed us how much she liked it by drinking the cup of sauce, making us laugh. Melody set her on my bed for a nap and joined me in the kitchen for an Arnold Palmer. "I don't want to pry or ruin our afternoon, Bill, but what happened with your daughters? I thought everything was better between you?" I shrugged my shoulders, hell if I know. I think I overreacted too though. I wanted you guys to meet and love each other like, well, at least to get along. I guess I got irritated when they started in on you with the questions before you were even introduced. That was hard for me to take, I didn't think I raised them that way. I expected something like that though. It's rough meeting a parent's new partner. Yeah, I know. It's just it all came rushing back to me there. All of the disrespect, the shutting me out, the hiding things from me. It hit me hard, and I didn't handle it well. I'm sure they'll be fine, she said, trying to soften the hard regret I felt. I heard the front door open and shut. I turned and saw the girls walk up to their rooms. I'm gonna go apologize and give them a hug. Will you excuse me? I asked. Of course. I'll check on Lucy. I kissed her cheek and walked up the stairs to see if I could iron out the mess I helped make. When I got to Maria's room, I saw her packing a bag. What's going on, pumpkin? She looked at me with a glare I hoped I'd never see again and wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. We're going with Mom. Maria, look, I'm sorry. I got angry when you were giving all that crap to. Enough, Dad. You're right. You were right all along. We only stayed with you because Mom's better man wasn't sure if we could all live together. They bought a new house now, and it has rooms for both of us. It's time we joined Mom like we always planned. I stood in shock. I couldn't believe it was true. Was it an act all along? God, she sighed. You don't know how hard it's been putting on a show for you while Mom got it all sorted out. I begged, no, baby. Please, don't. She brushed past me, and I couldn't move. I tried with everything I had to chase after her but was frozen. Then I heard Tara say, it's probably for the best if you just let us go and leave us alone. I hope your trash girlfriend and her brat were worth it. We could have at least had some kind of relationship after we went to Mom's. Now. I was lost in shock when I heard Melody say, I think you've said enough, don't you? Tara snorted, whatever. I hope you're happy with him in this little matchbox of a house. What am I saying? Of course, you will be. It's probably an upgrade from the gutter you're crawling out of. I heard the front door slam and was finally free to move. I turned and saw Melody sitting on my bed, stroking Lucy's hair as she slept. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say, I said as I walked into the room. Melody shrugged her shoulders. I could see a tear escape down her cheek. I can't believe they've been lying this whole time. I was just a placeholder until her mother could take them with her. I sat on the bed next to her and she rested her head on my shoulder. I've never seen anything like that, Bill. I don't know what's going through their minds. I guess you won't want anything to do with me now, I sighed. She lifted her head and kissed my cheek. None of what happened changes how I feel about you. I would rather have had a good relationship with your daughters, but I'm not going anywhere. This is all their mother's influence. I didn't raise them to be like this. I'm so crushed. I've really lost them. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. No one knows what the future holds, Bill. Just don't close the door. Someday they might come back to you when they realize what they've thrown away. I exhaled a deep breath. I didn't have any hope they would. 3 days later, my lawyer called me to tell me Aaron filed for changes to our custody arrangements. Since the girls went to live with Aaron, she wanted child support and her being named custodial parent. I told him to deal with it, and if I didn't have to appear in court, then all the better. I didn't want to see any of them at that point. Melody and I carried on building our relationship. After 6 months, she found a job as an administrative assistant and as a result had a major boost to her self-confidence. We were living together in my house and would get married in her hometown a few months down the road. Lucy was a little firecracker, and if you didn't know how little she was, you'd swear she was a teenager sometimes. One night, Melody and I were fixing dinner and Lucy walked into the kitchen. Mr. Bill, there's a girl swinging on my swings. I looked at her with surprise and went to the back door. I saw my daughter Tara slowly rocking on a swing on our old swing set. I didn't know what to do. I hadn't heard from either of them since they tore my heart out and left. I felt Melody's hand on my shoulder. Go to her, Bill. Something's not right. I felt a surge of anger flow through me like electricity. The thought that someone might have hurt one of my baby girls was too much to bear. The sliding door made a loud noise as it slid open. Tara had her back to us but heard the sound and tried to run away. Tara, wait. I shouted. She ignored me and kept running. By the time I got to the front of the house, her car was screeching down the street. I felt Lucy take my hand and she asked, "Was that your mean daughter?" I picked her up and said, "They weren't always mean, Lucy. At one time, they were just as sweet as you are." Melody asked, "What was that all about?" "I don't know, baby. I think something's not right over there though, and I'm gonna go and find out." I kissed them goodbye and drove across town to my ex-wife's home. All along the drive my adrenaline spiked, and my anger rose like bile in my throat. If seeing red were a thing, I'd have been blinded by blood. I screeched to a stop in front of their expensive home in the right neighborhood for the up-and-coming lower-upper class. Tara's car was in the driveway, and the front door of the house was open. When I got to the door, which had no screen door, I heard shouting. I walked into the house and saw Maria crying on the couch and my wife screaming at Tara. The asshole was nowhere to be seen. "Stop lying, you spoiled brat," my ex yelled as I walked into the room. Maria saw me and jumped up. "Daddy!" She ran to me and grabbed me into a hug I barely returned. Tara ran to her room and Aaron glared at me. "What the hell are you doing here, Bill?" she shouted, eyes narrowed from anger. "I want to know what is happening with my girls." "Oh. Are they your girls now? Not a word for months, and now you want to play daddy again. Well, fuck you, garbage man." I moved Maria to arm's length and held her shoulders in my hands. "What's going on, Maria?" "Nothing," Aaron shouted. "Go home to your whore and let me handle my daughters." Tara came down the stairs with her phone in her hand and looked afraid. Maria said to Tara, "Show him." She handed me the phone with a video ready to play. I was shocked to see proof that Jason was perving on them. Anger seethed through my muscles. Every one of them tightened. I handed the phone back to Tara and looked at Aaron. "It's all an innocent mistake, Bill. She's overreacting." I growled, "Pumpkin, how many times did he do it before you recorded him?" "3, she sobbed. Aaron yelled, "Stop lying." I held out my arms and Tara ran into them, crying into my chest. "Girls," I said as calmly as I could, "go pack a bag. You're coming home with me." To my surprise, they ran upstairs. I only hoped they were doing as I asked. I couldn't leave my baby girls with that predator. I glared at Aaron and said, "I suppose she told you he was doing that, and you didn't believe her. That's why she started recording her showers. It's a simple mistake. He thought it was me in the shower." "Were you home when she recorded that video?" She lowered her head, then raised it in defiance, "Yes." I shook my head and before I could respond, the asshole walked through the door. Well, the garbage man came a day early. I turned around and hit his nose as hard as I could. Every bit of anger I felt for the previous half hour left my body through that punch. He went down and rolled around bleeding all over their beige carpet. "I'm calling the police," Aaron yelled. "That was the biggest mistake of your life, you son of a bitch." The phone was in her hand, then up to her ear in a flash. I smiled at her and raised my eyebrows, nodding my head. She understood immediately, looked at the asshole rolling on the floor, and ended the call. "What? You don't want the police to come, Aaron? Why not?" "Just leave," she almost whispered. I turned and saw Alan rising slowly, very bloody. He made a mistake and squared his body to mine as he tried to stop his blood flow with his shirt. For a split second, I wondered how hard Justin Tucker had to kick the ball to get the NFL record for longest field goal, but I just winged it. As the top of my foot connected with his balls, he actually lifted off of the ground. The look of shock and pain on his face was priceless, and I wish I had a picture. I would have loved to have that on my mantle at home. Aaron screamed and ran to him. The girls came up behind me and took my arms. Tara said, "Take us home, Daddy." Aaron spun around and said, "If you go with him, you won't be welcomed back." "This is it." Tara's eyes flashed with rage, and she slapped Aaron. "Goodbye, Mother." As we drove, I asked, "Did he ever touch either of you?" "No," they said in unison. "Maria, Did he ever walk in on you? Yes, she said. I saw her in my rearview mirror hanging her head. Why didn't you lock the door? I asked. The lock is bro. Ken, and the only other shower is in their bedroom. We're forbidden from using that bathroom. Why did you run from me at home, Tara? I wanted your help so badly, but after what we did to you, I couldn't ask. She started sobbing. She stuttered while sniffling back tears. I couldn't, I thought you'd say no. And, I'd be on my own. A tear fell down my cheek. How could we get so far that she thought I would tell her no in a situation like that? I said, I will never not help you. No matter what you do or say to me, you two are always gonna be my baby girls, got it? Maria added, but you have that little girl now. You don't. Lucy did not replace you in my heart. She's right in there with you, but she could never replace you. Not ever. A lot of tears were shed that night. Melody opened her arms to them, and they walked right in. All the hurt wasn't washed away that evening, but we were well on our way, and I got my girls back eventually. Epilogue. When Alan got out of the hospital the next morning, he was greeted by our local police. Tara was afraid to go to the police at first, but with us there for support, she found the strength to show the video to the police. That, coupled with Maria's accusations, along with Aaron's bank proving she was at work when the video was taken, ended Alan. In our state, if the intent can be proven, peeping is a misdemeanor with 6 months max sentence. Because Maria was under 16 and Alan was over 21, if convicted he would get a max of 10 years and be labeled as a sex offender. They proved his intent with Tara's video. Some kind of legal mumbo-jumbo made the video admissible under one-person consent loopholes because they were victims of a repeated crime. He got 10 years for Maria and 6 months for Tara. Aaron didn't even show up for the trial. The girls wouldn't see her again for almost 10 years. Maria was the first to get married, and as we walked down the aisle of the church to get pictures taken, Aaron was in the back row alone. They reconnected, but there was never a familial relationship again. They were calling Melody Mom shortly after they realized their birth mother was protecting her meal ticket over them. I'd say it's a shame, but when you throw shit at a hurricane, it's bound to splatter back in your face.